world. He started around 1990. He started like a newsletter that connected people, and then he started the Contemporary Acapella Society of America, which was really capitalizing on the internet and getting groups to connect. So he was sort of like the person everyone knew in acapella. So he was music directing, and the show got kind of crazy with just logistics, and he told the producers, I need another person on the ground with me. I need somebody who can arrange, who can direct, who can help mix the show, who could do pre-records if pre-records need to happen. And I had done some projects with him, so he had me fly out to basically assist him with the show.
Wow.
So that was kind of the first big thing. So that was fall of 2009, which was the same time that Glee premiered. And it was a year before, it was right around the same time somebody got the rights to do Pitch Perfect as a movie. So all these things were kind of happening simultaneously and in parallel. And I just happened to work my way into each of those settings. So the sing-off happened first. And then the next year I was working on Glee because Glee hired my college group to voice one of the groups. So they agreed to do it if I could come in and help arrange and produce the material.
Nice. I was going to ask, like, if you had an in.
Yeah, it's like, you know, people ask what you need to do to have a career, and it's like you can't plan opportunities. All you can really do is you just have to be prepared so that when an opportunity happens, you could do the job. And obviously you have to network and know people, and which helps the opportunities happen. You know, they won't happen in a void, but you can't hand select doors to open, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So those things happened. And then around the third season of the show, that's when Pentatonix was created and was on the show. That's around the same time Pitch Perfect happened. So they were all, it wasn't like really a series of dominoes per se. It was sort of like these parallel quasi-intertwining things, and it was a small enough world. It was like, oh, you're doing this a cappella thing? Like, here's the short list of people to get in touch with who can help you make it.
Love it. So, do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, your work with them, with Pentatonix?
Sure. So I met them, I was helping out with auditions for the show, kind of doing, I was kind of the go-between between people who were running live sound for the auditions and the groups, because especially at that point in time, most live sound engineers had never seen an a cappella group, so they didn't really know what to do. So you're explaining basic things like, oh, well, like actually that guy's going to sing bass, so you can't put your normal vocal high pass on him because that's going to cut out all his notes. Just like little basic things like that to get the wheels turning and get the auditions running okay. So I met them when they came in for their audition, and then they were on the show. And by that season, I was really just doing post-production and some pre-recorded things. They typically did pre-records, like if there was going to be a celebrity on the show or something, so that the celebrity could like practice with the pre-record and not have any surprises thrown at them and stuff. So I was sort of working with them in that capacity. And then after the show, they got the prize for the show was they got a record deal, and they were almost immediately dropped just because,
really,
you know, just because at this point, labels were absolutely convinced you couldn't sell anything having to do with a cappella. So they figured, well, we'll just cut our losses. So they ended up going to a label called Madison Gate, which was like still on Sony, but they mostly do soundtracks and things like that. Like, oh, we have a bunch of music from this show. Let's put it on the album, and this will be the label, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I was doing mixing. They were starting to put out YouTube videos, and my friend Ben, who helped put them together, helped arrange for them, and was producing their videos and things, had me mix, you know, and this was like they were recording in their bedroom, and we were just sort of knocking it out to go up on YouTube. And then they started getting a lot of traction on YouTube, and it just sort of snowballed from there. It was really born out of YouTube.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
From there, I think in 2014, RCA said, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have dropped them. Maybe we missed out on something, because I think the EPs they did on those labels, they weren't smashes, but they were charting. You know what I mean? So then Sony said, well, they're charting and they have, 4 million YouTube subscribers and counting. Maybe we should try to get them back on more seriously. So they signed to RCA, I think in 2014. And then after that point, it was just a much bigger operation. And the Christmas album they did in 2014 is the one that ended up going, it's like double platinum now, and was the 4th highest selling album of that year, which was just
wow,
blew all our minds. Just like, not in a million years did we think there would be half that amount of success for anything we were going to do.
Wow, that's so cool. So I'm assuming that your business has kind of just become like word of mouth through that. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, groups I've met along the way, or groups that have, read their liner notes and contacted me, or seen them on YouTube and contacted me. But yeah, it's pretty much any business you can get. I think in music or audio is word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
A lot of
because people trust their peers and their friends.
Yeah,
and
there's not a lot of cold calling.
Yeah,
every now and then there might be. Every now and then I get somebody who's like,
yeah,
they went on Google and searched a cappella recording or something.
Yeah,
but those are few and far between.
Yeah, people. I assume that like when artists contact you, they already trust you because you have, because of the reputation and what you've what they've already heard, right? Like, I feel like, I guess, is communication usually very smooth with your clients?
Yeah, I would say more than half of my clients are either like somebody I've worked with in a different capacity, or somebody who is like close friends with somebody who I've worked with before.
Yeah. So it's like a family, or, just a close circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Do you want to talk a little bit about mixing and your approach to mixing? Because your mixes are phenomenal, and they're very, they're obviously unique because they're a cappella. But, what's your approach? Like, my friends also tell me that you churn out consistently amazing mixes. I guess I wanted to ask you also about like templates. How does mixing work for you?
So I think one reason I've been able to do so well is that because it's, at least when I got into it, it was really uncharted territory for how do you mix contemporary a cappella music. There were a handful of people doing it, and, people like Bill and some other people who had made big strides in figuring things out, but it was still kind of like one giant experiment. And I think that's what drew me to it. And I think that helped me not be afraid of it. I feel like, because sometimes I'll mix bands. Like if I'm mixing a country song for a full band, then there's the pressure of like, well, God, there's been hundreds of thousands of commercially released country songs, and I need to make sure it can live in that world and make sense.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm, when I'm mixing Pentatonix, I'm like, this is probably going to be the first contemporary a cappella song 2 million people have ever heard. I could do whatever I want, and as long as I like it, it's going to fly. So I don't know why, like, for me, that was not intimidating. That made it unintimidating.
Made it fun.
It made it fun, like an adventure, and like I could almost do no wrong, and I could be guided by my instincts rather than the canon of what's out there already.
Yeah, actually relate to that. I did I did a mix for like a group of guys that were doing like a beatbox thing. It was like four guys. It was beatboxing and like fake synths and stuff. Well, not fake synths, but like, you know, acapella synths. And I mixed it, and I was just like, this is like crazy, because I could literally put like, let's just try the decapitator and like distort the crap out of this and just like put our bass and just beef it up like crazy. And it was just like, let's just have fun. It was just like a, you know, it was like a kid at a candy store kind of, because it wasn't like, I'm not like trying to make the kick work with the bass in like a typical kind of way. You know what I mean? I mean, I am, but not.
Right.
You know?
But like the bass is an octave above where you're used to, and like everything's on its head and crazy, and yeah. So that's always, I've always sort of embraced that, and I've always sort of taken that to mean like there's less stress about getting it right or wrong, and more about like just turn it into something that's compelling to whoever's going to listen to it.
Nice.
And I think
yeah, go on. Sorry.
I think especially when I got into mixing, you know, because I got into it just as like a bedroom producer. Like I didn't have training for it. And even to this day, I won't even call myself an engineer, because I feel like, you know, my mind goes to like people who can like solder and like, and calibrate tape machines and fix things when they break. And I'm like, I can't do any of that stuff. In my brain, that's what an actual engineer is. Like an engineer is somebody who can go into a live concert venue and hear one little tiny thing of feedback and be like, oh, that's exactly this frequency, and kill it. You know what I mean? I'm not that person. I'm a musician, and I'm on the creative side, and that's how I got into it.
Yeah, totally. Very cool. So in terms of like the mixing, like how much of it is like every song has like, you know, do you start off with a template, or is it kind of every song has its own new canvas? It's like its own new uncharted territory. Like how does that work for you?
So I definitely have things I do regularly, and some things I'll do pretty much the same from mix to mix. I don't use templates. One, because I don't use a lot of templates or presets, because I think at a certain age you get tired of like your system crashing and you lose all that stuff. So I've tried to go preset free, template free. Hotkeys. Like I don't make my own hotkeys, because I'm like, A, I'll lose them, or B, I'll sit down in somebody else's studio where they're not programmed in and feel useless.
Right. Yeah.
So I try to make myself work like within the parameters of like, so that I could stand up, sit down at any other Pro Tools rig, wherever, and be able to do my thing. Obviously, like I have some weird plugins that I would prefer to have, like anybody else. But it's not like, oh, let me pull up my background vocal bus or my drum bus that's like my go-to bus, you know? The other thing is that like, you know, because I learned on my own, I never felt like, oh, now I'm an expert and I can just keep doing this one expert thing over and over and over again and everything's going to be great. I always felt like, well, I'm slightly less ignorant than I was yesterday, and if I keep working at it, then I'll be slightly less ignorant tomorrow. So like I don't want to pull up a preset. I want to start from scratch again and say, oh, I did it the same this time. That must mean there's something to it. Or I did it totally differently and it sounds a little bit better or a little bit worse. You know, what did I learn from that?
Yeah, I love that. I love that approach of like just coming from this like, you know, humility of like, you know, I know a little more than I knew yesterday, but I don't know everything. And I think that's like key to like being able to learn new things and get better at your craft.
Well, especially as I get older. When I was younger, it would frustrate me how much I didn't know. Now I'm happy that there's stuff I don't know, because otherwise it would be really, really boring. You know, the idea that you could just like learn everything about audio and everything about sound and everything about every plugin there is, like that's kind of frightening, you know?
Yeah, you don't want to know everything. You want to have that curiosity. Tell me a little bit about like how you actually mix a cappella, because bass, mixing a bass drum and like a beatbox bass drum, I feel like are not exactly mixed the same way.
Right.
Do you have any like tried and true techniques that you use? Yeah. So
a lot of things are, it's funny, some things are very similar to how you would mix other types of music, but it just doesn't occur to people to do it. Like, for example, with beatboxing, the fastest way to explain it to somebody who mixes other types of music is to say